Hello and welcome to this Christian Walk podcast, the show where no topic is too taboo to empower you on your walk with God. I'm your host, Marley B, and it's my privilege to welcome you back to the conversation. And this week we are continuing and concluding a two-part update series where I am inviting two courageous women of God back on the show from season 1 to update us on their healing journey. We had a great conversation. So let's get into it right now with LaShawna and Miss Rena Renee. Right now.
Listen, homie, can you walk with me? Talk with me. What you know about God? Will He ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me. Hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen, homie, can you walk? Can you walk? Let's walk.
Rena Renee and LaShawna, welcome back to this Christian Walk podcast.
Hi, thank you for having us, Marley.
Thank you for being here. Rena Renee, I heard you over there. What you say?
I say yes, I do. Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for agreeing to come back. It is season 5, and I could not have this season go on without hearing from some of our most prolific guests in our earlier season, right? So, LaShawna, you were on the 3rd episode of season 1. Ms. Rena Renee, you were on the 2nd episode of the 2nd season, right? And you guys are both. I told LaShawna this because we had a little update, just the two of us, a couple of weeks ago. And I was telling her she, to this day, is still like the highest watch video that I had. And I was just like, wow, I'm very proud of that. And not so much of the fact that we reached the number. It's the fact that the conversation was so important. And I'm so glad that so many people got a chance to see that, and that time felt like it was something worth doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the same thing with you, Rena Renee. Like, so many people called me, like, oh my God, that story spoke to me. Like, I really felt her pain. And then it's like they went on the whole ride with you. They went from the time of your childhood and came to the time of now this epiphany that you're having on the other side of getting in touch with those feelings that you had stifled for over 50 years. Like, people were there with you and they were feeling like, wow, that was amazing. And I just want to thank you both, right, for agreeing to do the show. And then for, being so vulnerable when you did it, because, somebody say, yeah, I go on there. And then it's like, yes, I did have a situation, but now it's over. And it's like, okay, well, I can't really, I'm pretty sure you got a little more in you. But, and even though I'm not about trying to just, I'm not trying to just make tears. I'm not trying to make any kind of emotions. I want it to be real. And you guys came on and you were so real about some of the realest situations you had ever faced in your lives. And I am forever grateful to about that. And I just want to, because I'm always trying to get people to come on to the show, and sometimes I'm a little reluctant, but I would like to hear what your experience was about coming on the show. Like, what was your reasoning? Like, what made you do it? Because with some people, what they don't know is, like, LaShawna, you called me out rip. Like, I didn't call you. I wouldn't call you and say, hey, with everything that you were going on. So what was it like? What was that process like for you to say, you know what, I'm about to call Marley and come on this show? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was all like, it was really for me, like, I wanted others to know, right? Like, I really wanted people to know my experience. At the time when we met, like, it was like soon after my family had passed away, right? And COVID was still in the news. We were talking about vaccinations. We were talking about how it impacts people. And I like wanted people to know my experience, and I wanted to share that, even though it was painful and it's still incredibly painful. It's a story that needed to be heard, and I wanted people to be safe and understand that, you know, COVID was no joke, and it was spreading like wildfire, and you can still get it even with vaccinations. And depending on your how healthy you are, like even with vaccinations, you can get really, really sick and potentially pass away from it. So it was really important for me initially to say, okay, I am in pain, but other people are probably maybe have experienced this pain before, so they can relate, or they want to know like what's going on, like you know, what's happening. And then in the news, there were so many people that were losing multiple family members to COVID. And so you know, that's also another wonder. And one thing that popped up, like when I watched my mom and my uncle's funeral on the website, like on the funeral website, and it had something like 14,000 views. It was like unreal, like so many people, and they had so many questions, and like so I was like, this is the best mode of communication for me, right? Like I feel safe with Marley. I know she's not trying to exploit my pain or anything like that. So I just like, you know, reached out. I knew you were doing this, and I'm like, this is the first way to go. So that was my rationale.
Yes. And I love how you said that, because with everything that was going on, especially in the peaks of COVID, it was just so many, it was just so much. You couldn't really pinpoint anything. Everything was so generalized.
Yes.
It was so generalized. And it was so important for us to be able to individualize what was going on. And for you to step up and say, hey, I want to tell what it's been like for me as an individual, the impact that this globally impactful thing is doing, what it's done. You know, I think it was so important for us to do that, because it's hard to see when you're just looking at the news and they're like 10,000 more, 20,000 more, 900 more.
It's numbers.
It was just
numbers, right?
You're like, not getting the impact.
Yeah, it felt you know, like I think initially before my mom and my uncle passed away, like I like was seeing COVID as something that was like, it was like, oh my God, this is awful, this is bad, right? But also like the numbers kept growing, and I'm like, is this like the flu? Like, you know, there was just like so many questions that I had, and I don't know that I took it as serious as I needed to take it until that event happened either, right? So I wanted people to understand how serious it was.
Absolutely. Right. And then when you think about all of the people that was touched, even considering the large numbers that they gave us, what's astounding is still the number of people that were not.
Yeah. Right.
It's a lot of people that just really were not impacted in the way that a lot of people think. Yeah. And so that was even more important for that group of people who really are watching this, and it seemed far away, even though it seemed close, because it's in all of our states, it's in all of our cities, but all of our jobs, everything. But it's still, if it didn't touch you in a way that was prevalent, because I had a lot of, like personally, I had a lot of family members that got sick, but got better.
Yeah.
And so my experience with that is going to be different than somebody who lost someone. Right, or right. Even so much somebody who got so sick that they almost lost someone. Because some people were on the brink of death, which is just as traumatic for a family. It's people's families still trying to rebound from those medical bills and all of that stuff. The impact is still looming, and it's still having all kinds of layers with it. And I just wondered, like, just from your perspective, do you feel like we learned anything
I
as
do.
a nation?
Yeah, you know, it's really odd because I am in Atlanta, and let me say this, like I love the city of Atlanta, but I don't think Atlanta ever shut down. And it was like, you know, people were like anti-vaccination, and I wasn't sure like which way I was going, right? Like I didn't know what I was gonna do. And then people weren't wearing masks and things like that. And I just felt like, you know, through all of this stuff, I think we learned, but also, you know, we reverted back, right? We were like during that process, we were learning, right? We were learning to like care for one another. There were like communities coming together, dropping things off at people's doors, and families were coming together. Excuse me. But after, now that the pandemic, it feels like it has slowed down, right? In terms of how many people have gotten it or how many people have passed away from it. We've gone back to like our normal selves, like nothing's ever happened, and we're moving on. And the families that have had all of this loss because of it, we're stuck in that time.
Yes.
And so that piece is still important, but I don't, you know, I don't think humans have the, I think we have the ability to learn, but I think we have a bigger or larger ability to forget.
Yes, yes. And we definitely seen the forgetting happening. I remember one thing that I noticed in the pandemic is all the provisions that were put in place that I felt like, man, we should have been doing this the whole time. Like, you know, and then, you know, it makes you wonder about stuff like, how come when you go to the nail shop, the tech got on the mask, but you don't? I feel like we should have all been masked up. I feel like every time you popped open something, I feel like you should have been opening a machine that was like, and you know, it should have been steam, and you know, I feel like that was going on then. And it's like they went on, they did it for a while, but then you seen it revert back. And it's like, did we learn anything? And you know, even as much as how they stuff us in places, restaurants, concerts, public transportation, airplanes, they stuff us in these places, and knowing that they are just germy is I don't know what. But and it's like we learned for a minute, like we need to stretch out.
Well, you know, the one thing I did learn too, Marley, was the whole like the surplus piece where people were like, you know, like grabbing toilet paper and all of that. Like you couldn't find toilet paper in the stores. And I specifically remember having this conversation with my mom, like, and I was living in Charlotte, and the pandemic had just like kicked off, and the stores were crazy, and people were just like stuffing their carts with toilet paper and all this other stuff, right? And so my mom's like, well, you need to get to the store, right? Like you need to get, and I'm like, no. But now that sticks with me in my head, right? Like, so now I go to the store, I pick up like 3 packs of toilet paper because I'm like, no, I ain't going without. Y'all don't catch me in the next pandemic without it.
Exactly. And one thing I gotta say, my grandmother always taught us is some stuff you just don't run out of.
Yeah, you just don't run out.
It's some stuff you just don't run out of. And it's like when you get like it should always be a surplus of something.
That's right.
Things. And toilet paper is one. I mean, and still shame on the people who was buying it all and trying to resell it. Shame on you for you to exploit people's bathroom time is
Yeah.
just wrong. It's just
Yes.
wrong. Now, Rena Renee, now, what I thought was super cool, right, was that through the conversation and through the episode that me and LaShawna had in season 1, you were able to view that as her godmother, right? And you were able to, you reached out to her and said, you know what, I think I want to do that, which I thought was super duper dope. Okay. And then I was like, I had like the world's biggest goosebumps because I'm like, that's just showing me like, okay, what I'm doing, I'm supposed to be doing. Like it just was validation for me. So I just have
Right.
to thank you for that. You know, I don't know if I ever really said that to you, but that helped me keep going in a way that I can't even express really. But if you can kind of talk about your experience of saying, you know what, I want to do this and how that process was for you, Rena Renee.
Well, when I saw LaShawna, I knew she was in pain because, like I said, her mother's my childhood friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I won't forget meeting her mother on the porch because she's on a punishment and she couldn't get off that porch when we was 13 years old. I met her mother then. Been friends and we in our 60s. However, when Sean got on I want to say Pooh, but when LaShawna
You can
got
call her Pooh.
on,
You
Everybody,
can call me
LaShawna
Pooh.
is
okay,
Pooh.
yeah, that's my Pootie Pooh. When she got, when I saw her doing that podcast, I'm like, you know what? I've been in pain so many years and didn't know how to express my pain. Here she's a lot younger and she expressing her pain. She's in pain. Nobody can understand your pain unless you really put it out there for people to really understand. And I felt her. And so I called her and I'm just crying like, I want to do the show. So when I got to, I'm like, I'm crying even more and I'll do the show. I'm like, I've been in pain so many years, so many decades of years. She lost her mother, which was pain, but I've been in pain for 3 decades of years and not able to share it. Here she was sharing it freely and she was sharing it and she's not trying to bout in like I did for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to applaud for that because I'm like, you know what? I've got to let mine out too. Because that could eat you. Like I said, I'm going decades. When I met her mother on that porch, I was coming from decade of pain then.
Right.
Nobody knew my pain from coming from New York for what I was coming from, when I come to Toledo. But I just had to share that I, for so many years thought I caused, I was the cause of my sister dying. And I realized from going to therapy, which a lot of people think you shouldn't do, but I enjoy going there, that I realized that I didn't cause God, God was ready for the go. So I couldn't have stopped anyway. When God is ready for somebody to go, whether we lost it with the COVID, the cancer, when God is ready for him to come get their child, he's taking them. So I couldn't have stopped it. And I had to stop blaming myself for pain that, oh my God, it was painful the thought that, I was the reason my sisters was, that she died. And it wasn't me. And then being molested as a kid, and all these things that I've just held back and all the pain. And like I said, I don't really reach out. Like I said, I didn't have that many childhood friends. The childhood friends I had, I kept because I'm not a person to reach out, do a lot of talking. So when it touched me when Pooh was on that podcast, like, I need to tell my story. I need to, and then how it helped me because I have a rock that I keep in my yard that says my sister. And whenever I get another daycare, what kind of business, it will be named after her. But it just I can't explain. It just helped me knowing that through Pooh, the podcast, therapy, of all this decade of years that, like she said, time moves on. When we lose a loved one, everybody just move on. You don't think of that person still stuck back there, suffering. So time is just moving on for me. Time moves, everybody's having fun, everybody just, but not knowing my pain. And I didn't want to be stuck in that anymore.
Yes.
My pain needs to be release the pain I've endured, pain that somebody else I hope don't have to go through, and pain is it's something,
Yeah.
but
That
with that
traumatic
pain,
pain, that
it
trauma.
had brought me and Pooh even closer too.
Yes.
So also pain can bring joy for somebody, because I've always loved Pooh. She always been my daughter, but it brought us, because we both share a pain that, like she said, people that move on, that we share a pain that we have came closer.
Yeah.
Even though she's not going to Dubai with me, but we have.
She slid that right on in.
She slid that in, didn't she?
So I thank you for your podcast, and it was a good podcast. And people I have, I share my podcast with them as well. They was able to understand a little more about how I was, why I do what I do, why I say what I say I do, why I don't do what I do. It makes them understand me better. So I thank both of y'all for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate that. And you brought up another point that I feel very strongly about, right? Because I try my best to be an advocate for mental health, for seeking therapy. I know in your in this experience of sharing this story, you kind of got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm open to that fact, and you went to therapy for the first time, Miss Rena Renee, and I know that sometimes when it comes to therapy, the hardest part is making that first appointment and going, and you tackled that thing, and I just want to know, like, what made you not go to therapy prior to this experience?
Because I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't educated to understand what I was going through and what I should do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And because my mother didn't know how it feels, I didn't go to her. So like I said, when Pooh got on that podcast and expressed the pain that she went through and what she was going through, therapist and all that, I'm like, you know what? At my age, I should do it too. Because this young woman is putting it all out there. And I've been keeping mine in. And I'm so grateful because she don't have to go through. Look at me. I tell her.
For everybody listening, we promised this was going to be a tearless episode, but you know what? We'll take these because these are tears of joy.
And it is. Right?
These are tears of joy. So they are all good. They are welcome here. And so it is all good. It is
because I would still be stuck in that mode. So I'm not stuck in that mode anymore. I can come out of it. I can talk about it. I didn't, I'm going to forever love my sister like Pooh can forever love her mother. Mm-hmm. We're going to lose more people in our life as we live. Mm-hmm. So we now, got to learn how to cope with losing people, losing loved ones, without being stuck in somewhere you don't want to go. Because when you're stuck down there, it's hard to get out, and you don't want to be stuck down. I know I'm the part not explaining it right, but
oh no, it's coming out good.
It's
coming on. Yeah.
So I again, I'm glad I was able to tell my story, and because with the help of Pooh, helped me tell my story, the story that she didn't even know nothing how. She didn't even know about my life. Mm-hmm. So when I came out with him, like, it's a life that I've been living for so many years, and I was able to forgive myself. That's what I say. I was able to forgive myself for something that I thought I did. Mm-hmm. And I was able to forgive the people around me that caused me the pain. Mm-hmm. So for my forgiveness, I can help people like Pooh to embrace her when she's going through pain, because I have not dealt with my pain.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. And how was it for you, LaShawna, to find out what you found out about her? You know what I'm saying? By watching this, to see her come onto the show and reveal parts of herself that you haven't seen in your whole life.
My whole life, right? Like, I had no idea. I was so proud of her. I was so incredibly proud of her, because that meant that she was, dealing with her pain. She was talking about it, and she was trying to climb out of it. And she said something that was really pivotal, was like, when you're in that darkness, like, you're trying to find just that speck of light to, like, really help yourself. And sometimes talk therapy, this podcast, friends that you trust, family that you trust, that helps you, that helps you be able to, like, articulate, like, this is what I'm going through, this is how I'm feeling. And I was so proud of her to, like, step up after 30 years and say, this is what I've gone through. And I've known Renee my whole entire life, right? Like, I never, like, even as a little girl, I would have, like, I'm running around her house, I would have never ever, like, expected that, right? Like, I would have never known that. And I thank her for sharing that with me, because that pain did bring us together, right? Like, it's never a situation where you want someone to experience pain, right? Let's say y'all can have a bond. We already had a bond, but I think that this was something that was just like, we understand each other on a whole nother level. There was one point, and I'll share this. And I don't know if Renee remembers this, but like, I was, it was during my mom's funeral, and so, like, my family had, like, dealt out tasks, right? Like, what we were gonna do and what we were responsible for. And I was responsible for, like, going to get, like, garments and, like, and the like, what dress and all of that, right? And at that moment is so real, right? Like, that moment is like, this is happening, right? Like, this is happening. And Renee actually was in the store with me, and I think we were in JC Penney or somewhere, and I just broke down. I broke down right there, like, and she just hugged me, and we just hugged right there. She didn't care who was around. Like, it didn't matter. I'm sure some people were looking at us like, what is wrong with these women? But I think, that pain, she understood. And, at that point, I don't know if I knew, like, what her pain was. She shared shortly after, but I think those things brought us closer together. And as godmother, like, I trust her explicitly, like, whatever happens in my life, like, she's gonna be the first to know. So, like, that piece of it, her sharing her story, and her, like, getting therapy, talking about it, like, being open with me about it, being open with you about it, makes me feel really good and really great that she is getting help, and I'm getting help, and we're together.
Absolutely. Because, and I shared that pride with you, because I was just like, I'm so proud of this woman. Like, she is really doing Wonder Woman level faith.
Yes, she is
going on. Like,
Yes.
I was just like, I was in awe of her. Like, even through the whole, and it was so crazy, because we talk about the therapist, right? Now, you were going to therapist, Rena Renee, without telling your family at first, right? And then you messed around And look,
And
I helped find this therapist, and we were all happy, like, oh, we found one. It's a Christian-based therapist. This is gonna be great. She went, she liked him. I was like, okay, cool. And then you break your leg going to see it. And
No,
that's how
you
everybody
did.
found out. That's how
I was
everybody found
like,
out.
I said, and then I'm waiting because she tell me like, okay, I haven't been telling my family but I'm going to therapy, but I haven't been telling my family. And then I was going one day and then broke my leg. So then I had to tell my husband. So all the time I'm like, okay, this is the day where she about to cuss me out. Like, you found this therapist. I shouldn't have been listening to you. I was like, oh, okay, it's about to, I was just like sitting there waiting, trying to brace myself for it. But she was like, you know what? But this is where I was just like, oh, I didn't think that I can love and respect this lady even more than I did before this point. But then you said broken leg and all, you know what? But the devil not gonna take my joy. The devil is not gonna keep me from going to therapy. I'm gonna continue to go. My husband know now. I'm glad that I was able to tell him. And I was just like, okay, this is good. So you're not gonna okay, good.
I
Because
told everybody.
like, but
Who
you
might have been
know,
the first one to know, but I told everybody after they want to know how did I break my ankle, and I'm like, I'm seeing therapists, and then that's when I told everybody to see the podcast. So the podcast helped explain that I wouldn't have to go through. So I gave everybody the podcast, but everybody's like, where was you coming from? And I kept saying I was in the doctor office. Well, what kind of doctor? I was just in the doctor office. Why question where I'm coming from? I'm in a doctor. But I was in so much pain from the broken ankle, from my heart to my mind to everything. To I was like, I gotta let it out.
yes.
Yeah.
After all these 3 decades of years, and I'm 68 now. All this happened when I was 8. Of all these many years, I got to let this out.
Yeah.
And that's reason. Like I said, I don't have many friends because I don't communicate great. So the friends I have, I treasure them friends because, they didn't even know. Nobody really know until the story came out. Even my own sisters didn't know how much pain, definitely what the boy did to me, all that. So the things that I went through, I am proud that I didn't lose my mind. And that's why I was going to make sure Pooh to stay straight. Because if I didn't lose mine, I was going to keep her together so she didn't lose her, because pain is a hurting thing and some people lose it.
Yeah.
And I
can
was going
take
to make
you out
sure
of
she
here.
was going to lose hers.
People,
Whenever she in town, she knows she got to stay with me. We talk. So she's going to be around me because she's not going to lose her. Because I'm here to make sure she's going to move on. And as you see with her little marching star, she's not losing her. She's moving on. And I'm proud of her too, because she is moving. She's not stuck like I for this many years. And she's a younger woman. She's moving on.
Yes, moving on. And then, so let me ask you about your therapist experience, LaShawna. Now, you're in HR. So you preach EAP all day, right?
All day.
You got to say, okay, well, have you EAP? Okay, well, that's available. You've been doing that for years. You already know that.
Years.
But was this your first stint going, experiencing therapy, or had you been before? What's your experience with therapy?
Yeah, no, I had it's really an odd thing because I think in the Black community, we don't really think about therapy as like a first resort. And so like I've gone to therapists before, like when I was married, right? Like went through marriage counseling type thing. But after this, after my mom and uncle passed away, like I knew like I couldn't hold that. I couldn't hold what I was feeling inside. And like, I know I couldn't put it all on my family. I couldn't put it all on my friends. And I needed somebody to be able to give me the tools to be able to like manage it. And I like, I started with EAP, right? Like I started at like the same thing, like, work. My boss was like, hey, like, make call EAP. I'm like, yeah, I got the number, right? Of course I got the number. I called them. And I think I shared this on the last podcast. Like, I think I went through 5 therapists or something like that. Like I would let them go, right? Like I was like not even shy about letting them go, or and finding the right one for me, because like I really wanted to talk deep. I wanted to ask the questions and like understand, like I wanted to like talk about God. I wanted to talk about, why was my family chosen, taken, and why am I in this pain? And like, I really wanted to go there. And some therapists either are I don't know if it's an obligation not to go there, or they just don't have the capacity to go there. And so I'm like, if you listen, if I can't talk to you about work, because I'm not worried about work, right?
Right.
Like right now, like work is like least on my mind. I am worried about like my mental health, because like never expected to lose my mom. And so I need someone strong enough to have that conversation with me. And you might not have the answers, and I don't fully expect you to to give me the reason why God selected my family to get COVID. But I do expect for you to let me talk through it, and then give me like the tools of like grief, and how do I process it, and try to get a little better, and get I'm never going to be fully myself again, but closer to normalcy.
Yeah, I get that. I definitely get that. And then so when it comes to breaking up with your therapist, do it feel like a real breakup? Do it feel like, it's not you, it's me? Like I just need more
Yeah.
from my person. So what is that like? Because I think people don't realize that, because a lot of people don't realize the importance of chemistry when it comes to their therapist. It's like you go in there, you sit down, and it's like, okay, fix me. But you can't. It's not going to be. Sometimes it's not the best fit. The first therapist, the second therapist.
Yeah.
But and I commended you on this when we had our last talk, LaShawna, keep going finding it, but don't be afraid to let a therapist that you don't have that you're not vibing with. Don't be afraid to let them go, and don't, just because that first one or that second one didn't meet your needs doesn't mean that it's not one out there. Now,
Yes.
right. Now,
Yeah.
do therapists need a Tinder page? I don't think so. I don't think you don't have to work that hard. I don't want you to feel like you gotta go on plenty of therapists, plenty of physicians. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to go to POF for your therapist. But I just don't want people to give up just because the first one or the second one is not doing it. But it's like you want to go in knowing what it is that you need.
Yes.
And being able to express that. Just like a relationship, right?
My therapist, I only went to the one person, and he really, really got me from the spiritual part, from the science part, from understanding part, from realize you're a kid part, from all the part that you got to realize you got to put them all them pieces together. So he took all the little puzzles pieces and put them together. Like she said, you're never gonna still get lost, because I still, feel my sister like my sister lost, and I know that I'm gonna go through more loss. So what the therapist now has been helping me, that I've been going through therapist, what I've been dealing with now, because I know there's gonna be some more loss. Now I'm going to be able to deal with, because I think at this point where I was at, if I'd had another loss, I might would have lost it.
Yeah.
Now I think I'm able to accept, if I'm gonna have another loss, how to accept it and keep my mind. So for that, I think that works out for me.
Oh yeah.
And I'm able to help people, you know, like Sean, like I just lost my cousin, you know, his wife, you know, able to help them to realize, you know, I know it hurts and it's painful, but you do have to just keep moving on, or you're just going to lose it. And that's not what your loved one wanted you to do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to end up in a psych ward or streets and all that. They want you to move on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we all going to go sometime. You just got to be able to accept death. And I think the therapist for me is able to, and with, you know, with God, able to accept that if I lose somebody, I really feel like I'm going to be hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be able to accept it more than I did when I was 8 years old. Because from 8 to now, dealing with somebody that I thought I caused death with and couldn't help. And instead of hearing her name saying, help me, Renee, and she's a ball of fire, you know, that was something to deal with. And for any kid, so a therapist, I went to one and he's been working with me. So I
one and done.
Stick with him.
Yes.
Great.
If you got one, stick with him. If you got one, stick with him. And I think it's so important that we know that and I think with our relationship with God, once you tap into that too, because sometimes we just have to be reminded of the characteristics of God. And he don't put stuff on us to break us. Is what we have to remember. Like if he brought us to it, he will bring us through it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we have to have that confidence in our walk with him to know that he won't put more on us than we can bear. Now, we're going to need his help to bear a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And right along with his help is going to take us being strong enough to say, okay, therapy, please. Because why theology is great and it is essential. Sometimes it takes therapy and theology, and that's okay. Because don't think just because you believe in the science of mental health that negates your faith. Because a lot of times that's what people try to say, and that's just wrong. And we want to stamp that out right down to the pits of hell where it belongs.
Yes.
Because you know, therapy is a gift from God, and a lot more of us should utilize it.
Yeah. Well, and then too, you know, I think, you know, trauma and grief, it really sometimes makes you doubt your faith. And you need to have that talk. You need to be able to talk that out. And sometimes that's just with you and God, and that's okay. But other times that might be with you, God, and the therapist, or and you talking to that therapist about, like, these are my beliefs and I'm not sure why it didn't come out the way I thought it should come out, right? And you know, having those conversations. So that's an important component. And I think we always think about we think about like therapy in this, and sometimes in this negative way of like, oh, like, you know, you're going to therapy, there's a problem. No, there's a problem, but I also am sharing this information, right? So I can like be whole, I can be my whole self. And I don't turn to the other things, the other vices that could get me, right? Because I wanna be able to talk it out. So I do think that more people should, you know, and there are more Christian-based therapists out there. I had to dig to find one, but I found one, and I had one, and now I have another one. And great. It's great.
Yeah. It's definitely good to have a therapist that shares your faith. I learned that because, and it's like sometimes you have to be the one to bring it up now, because they can't bring it up.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's like you're not gonna go I doubt you go in any therapist office and the first thing they ask you is, do you know Jesus? it will probably never happen like that because
Right.
there are laws in place to protect that. But
Right.
you can bring it up first and you can let your therapist know, hey, it's important to me that somebody can, even if you don't share it, that you understand it. You know what I mean? If you understand it, that's great, but I would prefer if you shared it because you will really be able to go in to the conversation with me that I want to go in. You know what I mean? So, but just a tip for people who are seeing a therapist and want to go deeper and wondering how to go about doing that. Because sometimes it's like, okay, well, dang, maybe I should bring it up. And a lot of times you will find out that your therapist is like, oh, I'm glad you went there. Because I can't. I can't go there until you go there.
Right.
Don't be afraid to go there.
Right.
If you're seeing a therapist and you want to really bring your faith into the conversation, you're gonna probably have to start that line.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely worth pursuing. But ladies, it sounds like that your experience of, acknowledging your experiences of life, right? Going towards them, not running from them, have
Yes.
been life-changing, empowering, and just overall beneficial to your well-being. To see that you guys are just still very much on a journey of healing, but
Yeah.
on a side of the street that is like where the sun is hitting you and you got some of that Jamaica, how that Jamaican going in when you just,
that Dubai sun.
yeah, right. That Dubai sun, when you got some of that just glistening off of your skin. That's what y'all look like y'all got going on. I just want to thank you guys again for agreeing to be on the show to share your life with us. If you could offer anybody who might feel the need to share their story but be reluctant to do it, some advice for being on the other side of being bold enough to just step out and come on the TCW and share with the fam. What advice would you give them? Let's start with you, Miss Rena Renee.
My advice would be, please don't keep it bottled up, because when you keep it bottled up, other things come and fake from it, plays with it. If I hadn't kept that, I was just thinking this other day, if I hadn't kept so much bottled, would I have been able to deal with people better? Would I be a lot further I am? Could I talk a little better and I pronounce my words? Well, there's a lot of things because I bottled it up. So do not let, because like Pooh said, you don't want to go down, and because my mother, I come from a Christian background, I didn't fall through the cracks. So that helped me, pull myself up. But there's so many people who scared of the therapist and want to bottle up. Don't bother, because it hurts. It hurts. It hurts. And it hurts really bad.
Let it out. That's what's up. And LaShawna?
Yeah, I would say share your experiences if you can, right? Like, be ready for that. Make sure that you're ready for it. Like, don't force yourself, but when you are ready, share your experiences. And I do love your podcast so much, Marley, because not only, are you able to like talk in this such a like a friendly way of like, expressing and like almost having fun, but then also like, being able to articulate like what you're going through, because a lot of people are going through the same things, similar things. We are all human. We all have traumas. We all have had we probably have already experienced death in our families, and it's important that you have that conversation, that you talk that out, And I think your podcast is great to, like, you know, have others hear that, because when you're talking to your therapist, you're talking deep, you're talking about the stuff that's personal to you, and I'm swearing and all of that. And so, but on your podcast, right, like I'm sharing my story, and Renee sharing her story, to help other people that may have similar experiences or feel that same way. And to your podcast is able to get to the masses, and talk to other people, and people see this and be like, okay, I'm encouraged to do this too. I'm also, like, you know, I'm proud of these two Black women that, you know, went through all of these experiences, and they're not afraid to talk about it on a podcast for, you know, millions to see. And they're also not afraid to go to therapy and get what they need in order to be healthy. So yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
She said it nicely for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming on and updating us about, you know, just your lives. Once again, just opening your lives up to us, opening up your journeys to us, because like you said, LaShawna, like you were saying, Ms. Rena Renee, we're all in this life together. And God, he did not make us to be just in these little bitty inside ourselves, just inside ourselves, and to be without community. A community is something that he meant for us. Kingdom community is the best thing that not enough people are taking advantage of. And sharing our experiences on this platform and on other platforms so that we can let people know that they are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
They are not alone. And sometimes you want to know, well, how did you deal with this?
Yeah.
That way, and not saying that the way that you deal with it's got to be the same way I deal with it, but it can help get me on the way with dealing with mine, because sometimes I don't know where to start or if starting is even worth it. But because of brave women like you guys who came on and showed what it was like to start on the journey of healing, so many women and men got to know what it looks like and what it can do. So thank you so much. God bless you guys. And I just am so proud of you. And I look forward to see all that God has for you.
Thank you. I love you both.
Love you guys. Thank you so much to my guests, LaShawna and Miss Rena Renee, for coming back on the show and updating us on your healing journey. I am truly so proud of you ladies for doing the work that is going to allow you to be all that God has called you to be. And if this conversation has spoke to you, please like it, share it, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember, you can also check out our website, which is thischristianwalk.com, as well as stream us on the go on iHeartRadio, as well as Apple Podcasts. Now, there were so many nuggets in this two-part series, TCW Fam, but if one thing is taken from the experience of these ladies, I pray that it's the fact that anybody is subject to deal with grief or trauma at any time. So what we need to all do as a community is to take the stigma off of seeking help when we need it. Yeah, this show is all about advocating for a relationship with God. And I'm not saying God doesn't have the ability to get us through anything we need, but sometimes he gives us tools that are available for us to use to help us. And I really think that sometimes it takes both theology and therapy. So let's, as a community, encourage it, support it, and embrace it. Because one thing I know for sure is on this walk with God, loving God can be easy. Trusting God can be hard. But I believe we can all get there, one step at a time, on this Christian walk. I'll see you next time.
Listen, homie, can you walk with me? talk with me. What you know about God, will he ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me, hear my story. Show me more, what's in store. And once more, listen homie, can you walk? Can you walk? Let's walk.